I know what you're after. You got big dreams, don't you? Let's be real. You're dying to get your hands on that Lamborghini, feel the ocean breeze in your face, cruising down the beachside highway in a drop top. But you know the truth. There's only one place where we can do whatever the hell we want. In that one video game, or in our dreams. So listen up. I've got an offer you can't refuse. Hit that like button and I'll take you straight into the limitless world of dreams. Feeling brave, huh? Go ahead, take a peek at Los Santos and Liberty City. Just don't forget who taught you how to play this game in the first place. The heat in Vice City hit different in 1984. It wasn't just the sun burning through the pastel haze, it was the tension thick in the air, the sound of stiletto heels clicking past neon-lit clubs, and the low rumble of deals going down in back rooms behind pink blinds and synthwave beats. The city was a jungle dressed in linen suits and gold chains, and everyone was chasing something. Money, power, or a reputation sharp enough to cut through the humidity. Enter Migs Alvarez, Cuban-born, street-polished, and fresh out of a 5-year stretch in Liberty's correctional system. Vice was his redemption song, or his grave. He hadn't decided yet. The first night back, Migs lit a Marlboro on the edge of Ocean Beach, watching partygoers dance under purple strobes while speedboats sliced the water like cocaine dreams. He wasn't some wide-eyed punk anymore. He didn't wear gold, he wore grit. And that's what caught the eye of Marta Caldera, the queenpin of Vice's southern corridor. Cuban mafia princess turned cold-blooded capitalist. She ran half the city from her high-rise in Little Havana, and she needed someone who didn't flinch when things got messy. "I got a pipeline from Bogota to Starfish Island," she told Migs, sipping daiquiri from a glass rimmed in diamonds. "But I need muscle with brains. Someone who knows which palms to grease and which doors to kick in." Migs gave her a nod and a slow smile. "Long as you don't mind blood on your marble floors." What followed was a neon-drenched climb through the city's underbelly. Gun running through the Everglades, hush deals in Malibu mansions, firefights in pastel pink hotel lobbies. Migs didn't just rise. He scorched his name into Vice's skyline. But power has a price. And the cartel boys from Mexico weren't happy about the turf shift. Neither were the crooked Vice PD vets looking to pocket their cut. When Marta's most trusted advisor ended up face down in a yacht pool off Leaf Links, Migs knew the final play was coming. Now, as the sun sets behind the palm trees and the streets hum with synth and sin, Migs loads a Mac-10 in the back of a Testarossa, shades on, vengeance in his lungs. The city made him. The city betrayed him. And tonight, under the glow of neon pink and electric blue, he's ready to burn Vice to the ground or take the whole kingdom for himself. The Testarossa's engine roared into the humid night as Migs slammed his foot on the pedal, carving through Vice City's slick, rain-drenched streets. The echoes of last night's chaos still pulsed in his veins, a raw reminder that betrayal and ambition were two sides of the same glowing coin in this neon jungle. Every turn, every glimmer of neon from the towering palm trees screamed of opportunity and danger intertwined. After the dockside clash, Migs knew he couldn't afford even a moment's rest. There were whispers in the underbelly of Vice City. The cartel was mobilizing, hungry to take advantage of any fracture within. Marta Caldera's empire. The same streets that once danced with pastel dreams now flickered with looming threats. With secrets seeping into every crack of the pavement, Migs steered his Testarossa toward the Palmetto Club, a notorious haunt where deals were struck under dim lights and smoky haze, and where trust was a currency scarcer than cash. Inside the club, pulsating synth beats and neon reflections mingled with the heavy scent of stale cigar smoke. Under the dim glow of dusty chandeliers, Migs met with Big Carlos, a grizzled fixer who had seen more back-alley betrayals than most in Vice City. Carlos's voice was gravel mixed with regret as he leaned in close. "Kid, word is, the Mexicans are circling. They got wind that someone leaked our pipeline schedule. Marta's got a lucrative thread from Bogota to Starfish Island, but if our info's been compromised, well, they're eager to tighten their grip." Migs's eyes narrowed. He took a slow sip of a bitter tequila, the liquid fire matching the intensity simmering behind his shades. "I didn't come back to play nice, Carlos," he growled. "I came back to take control. Whatever's leaking our secrets, I'll find out, and I'll cut 'em off at the source." Big Carlos's tired smile was almost wistful. "That's the spirit, Chico. But tread carefully. In this game, every pal is a potential enemy until you know otherwise. Marta said you're the best shot in the city. Don't let that reputation burn you out." Stepping away from the cramped back room of the club, Migs pulled out a payphone, its receiver crackling with static memories of the past. The voice on the other end was smooth yet icy. "Migs," Marta's sultry tone purred. "I got trouble. There's talk the cartel's ready to move. They're licking their chops over our business, maybe even planning a double cross. You're our only hope to secure the pipeline and clean up this mess. I need you on it, now." Every word from Marta added weight to his mission. The stakes were higher than ever. Vice City's underworld was shifting like sand under neon lights, and one misstep could crumble everything he'd fought for. With the adrenaline still coursing through him, Migs ended the call and slid his phone back into his leather jacket. His gaze hardened. Betrayal was a luxury in a city built on sin, and he had no intention of paying that price. Outside, the humid night embraced him as he left the club. The vibrant chaos of Vice City unfolded before him, pastel billboards blinking, out hypnotic advertisements, the distant thrum of Miami bass mingling with the chirp of cicadas, and sleek, classic cars gliding along Ocean Drive like polished daggers in the dark. He navigated these streets with the precision of a man who'd learned early that in Vice City, every shadow could hide an enemy. Migs pulled up to a nondescript warehouse at the edge of Starfish Island's industrial district, a temporary makeshift operations hub for his next move. Here, beneath a fractured neon sign that read Night's End, he met with a small cadre of trusted associates, a tech hustler who could scramble any security feed, a muscle-bound enforcer whose silence was as deadly as his fists, and a streetwise runner who had eyes in every dark alley of the city. "What's the play?" the tech hustler hissed as he adjusted his bulky headphones, his eyes glued to flickering screens of security cameras pilfered from the city's network. Migs replied, voice low and resolute, "We secure the pipeline before the cartel strikes. We move in, disable their comms, and intercept their shipment right under their noses. Find out who's been bleeding our secrets, and make sure they pay in full." The enforcer cracked a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You know, Migs, when you speak, it's like the city itself leans in to listen. Just don't let that fire burn you out, or we'll all get charred in the fallout." With plans carved out amid the electronic hum and gritty determination, the crew split up. Migs climbed back into his Testarossa, a sleek beast bathed in neon reflections, and sped off toward the next phase of his operation. His mind raced with possible betrayals, double crosses, and the promise of bloodshed that always followed in the wake of power struggles in Vice City. Every mile on the rain-glazed highway felt like both a march toward retribution and a descent, deeper into the urban labyrinth of deceit. In the distance, the horizon glowed with the promise of a new dawn, a light as fleeting as the hope that flickered in every Vice City street corner. But for now, in the neon-streaked darkness, Migs Alvarez was on a collision course with destiny. He gripped his MAC-10 tighter as he sent his car hurtling through the night, every pulse of the engine echoing his vow. In the heart of Vice City, where betrayal was as common as cheap cologne, he would either reclaim his throne or watch the empire burn. And as the city's electric heart pulsed under the humid sky, Migs steered ever onward, determined to rewrite the rules of a game ruled by neon shadows and deadly secrets. The humid night in Vice City pulsed with urgency as Migs Alvarez tore through the rain-slicked streets in his Testarossa. Every neon light that reflected off the asphalt was a promise and a threat, a reminder that time was running out. With the stolen contraband stowed securely in his duffel bag, his mind raced with the weight of what he'd just risked. He navigated the labyrinth of deserted alleys and abandoned warehouses, the distant sirens of rival operations, and the echo of rapidly shifting orders from Marta blending into a chaotic symphony. Ahead lay the shipping compound's perimeter, maze of towering containers and crumbling industrial walls glowing under fractured neon. Migs remembered the hush before the storm inside the compound, the careful dismantling of security protocols, and the swift, silent effectiveness of his movements. Now, with the compound erupting into disarray behind him, every shadow seemed to harbor a hidden assailant. His gut told him that the cartel's countermeasures were only just beginning to unravel into organized chaos. The sound of hurried footsteps and muffled shouts grew louder, propelling his heartbeat into a frenetic rhythm that almost masked the steady purr of his engine. He curved sharply onto a side street lined with faded murals of long-forgotten vice, city legends and the cracked silhouettes of palm trees swaying in the humid breeze. The Impala lowrider waiting for him loomed under a flickering neon sign, its chrome catching the ambiguous light of a new threat. As he pulled into the drive, Migs took a split-second pause to steady himself, his pulse thundering with both exhilaration and a gnawing sense of betrayal. Tonight, every mile he put behind him was not just an escape, but an active defiance against the forces clawing at the fragile promise of power in this neon jungle. Inside the grooved interior of the Impala, Migs barked out discrete codes into his burner. His tech specialist, shadowing him on an encrypted channel, confirmed that the digital trail from the compound had been severed temporarily. That bought him precious moments before the compound's alarms could rally reinforcements. He mentally replayed Marta's sultry, urgent voice, layered with equal parts trust and warning, and leaned forward, the leather of the steering wheel pressing into his resolve. The mission wasn't just about reclaiming stolen goods. It was about slicing through the treacheries that had long strangled Vice City's underbelly. As the lowrider merged onto a broad boulevard, the city pulsed around him, a dazzling cacophony of synth beats, distant laughter from midnight clubs, and the perpetual hum of desperation and defiance. Street vendors hawked their wares amid the glow of pastel billboards, a dissonant backdrop for a war that was being waged in silence. Migs's eyes narrowed as he recalled every twist of the night. The near miss at the compound, the urgent scramble to remain undetected, and the irreversible shift in power that stolen cargo promised to bring. He steered the Impala through narrow back roads and over quiet bridges, mapping out a route to a secure rendezvous point. There, his trusted team, Marta's eyes on the pulse of the operation via hacked feeds, and his own crew waiting for the signal, would be ready to transform tonight's haul into a decisive statement. Every rumble of the engine, every flash of neon on the window, was a silent vow. Vice City would no longer be a playground for betrayal. Instead, it would be a battleground where every move was a shot fired for a future written in grit and defiance. The further he drove, the more the chaos behind him melted into a distant memory, replaced by the tangible reality of the city's electric heartbeat. Migs Alvarez, hardened by nights of strife and sharpened by the neon glare of Vice City, pressed on. Amid the swirling mix of danger and promise in the humid night air, he knew that every decision, every hidden maneuver, would tip the balance between control and collapse. With determination pulsing through his veins like the bass of an underground hit, he accelerated into the uncertain darkness, ready to stake his claim in a city where every shadow held a secret and every moment could spark the revolution. The humid, foreboding pulse of Vice City continued to beat as Migs Alvarez pressed deeper into the night. Every mile behind the wheel of his Impala felt like a calculated bet against fate, a high-stakes wager where the neon glow of the city was both a siren and a warning. The cargo he'd risked everything to secure now represented more than just stolen contraband. It was the spark that could ignite change in a city built on sin and shattered dreams. The back roads led him to the outskirts, where the city's gaudy glitter faded into low-lit industrial decay. Abandoned warehouses and forgotten service roads whispered secrets of old deals and lost fortunes. Migs navigated these routes as if reading an ancient map, each turn a reminder of battles fought, betrayals endured, and lives that had been both lost and reclaimed under the relentless vice. City sun. The rain pounded softly against his windshield, a metronome keeping time with his racing heart as he neared the rendezvous point. Sliding into a secluded loading bay behind a crumbling brick facade, Migs parked the Impala beneath a sputtering street lamp. Here, the safe house stood as a rugged testament to survival, a repurposed building with dead eyes for windows that now hid luminescent hope. Its walls, scarred by time and neglect, were about to bear witness to the birth of a new order. The air inside was heavy with anticipation and the distant hum of strung-together machinery, punctuated by the occasional buzz from a misfit radio playing static-laced tunes. Stepping cautiously into the space, Migs was greeted by nods from his trusted crew, faces that had weathered countless storms of Vice City's turbulence now shrouded in determination. In the dim interior light, every scar on the battered furniture and every flickering fluorescent bulb felt symbolic of the struggles they'd all overcome. A brief moment of silence fell as each person gauged the gravity of the night's next phase. The tension was almost palpable, a living thing that coiled in every corner. "Tonight we transform this hall into power," Migs said in a husky, resonant tone that cut through the stillness. The words hung between them like a pact. "Our block isn't defined by the chaos out there, it's defined by us. We take back what's ours and build something that lasts. No matter if the cartel or any dirty cop tries to stake a claim, we're here to rewrite the game, one move at a time." He moved over to a worn set of maps pinned haphazardly on a battered table. Using a piece of chalk, he traced routes that snaked through the city, a network of roads, alleys, and safe houses that would form the backbone of their operations. His eyes, dark behind reflective lenses, shone with the ferocity of a man who'd seen too much to back down. As he pointed out choke points and possible ambush locations, the team listened, each member mentally rehearsing their role in this unfolding chess match. Outside, the distant beat of synth and the low rumble of engines reminded them that Vice City's restless spirit was never far away. The stolen contraband, wrapped in secrecy and bolstered by adrenaline, was soon going to be rerouted to a more permanent stronghold, a secret base where every stolen dollar would become a brick in the foundation of a revolution that promised to reclaim the pride of the streets. Migs recalled Marta Caldera's words, luxurious yet edged with lethal command, and those memories mingled with the warnings that Big Carlos had given about treacherous alliances. Trust in Vice City was as dangerous as any double-cross, yet as vital as the air they breathed. With that in mind, Migs ordered his tech specialist to double down on scrubbing the digital trail left by their last operation. Every precaution mattered, for one wrong click could expose them to the hungry gaze of rival gangs or the iron fist of corrupt law enforcement. With the plans laid out and roles defined, the safe house slowly shifted from a temporary hideout into a command center of resolve. Migs paced along the gritty floor, each step echoing his inner resolve. The weight of the night pressed upon him, but so did the promise of something greater, a chance to flip Vice City's narrative from one of exploitation to one of empowerment. He could almost see it. Community centers replacing rundown bars, honest work supplanting the desperation of street deals, and a new generation that wouldn't have to pay the price of a city built on corruption. As the hours dragged on, the first hints of a new dawn began to light the horizon, a subtle interplay of darkness and promise. Outside, the city's neon heartbeat endured, pulsing steadily even after so many fights had nearly broken its spirit. In that liminal space between night and day, Migs Alvarez realized that every decision he made, every risk he took, was a step toward reclaiming his own destiny, and that of every soul still lost in Vice City's labyrinthine streets. Drawing a deep breath, he looked over his team, each face resolute, their eyes reflecting the collective hope of the underdogs. This was not merely survival, it was the genesis of a movement. And as the rain subsided and the city began to stir, Migs slipped back outside. The road ahead was uncertain, lined with shadows and the ever-present threat of exploitation, but it was also emblazoned with possibility. In the crisp morning air, Migs revved the engine of the Impala and set his sights on the next phase of the operation, a journey that would take them deeper into a maze of treachery and ambition. Every mile, every pulse of the engine was a commitment to a future where Vice City's underbelly would finally be ruled by its own people, the anonymous heroes who dared to challenge the status quo. With a final glance at the safe house, the temporary womb of their dreams, Migs accelerated into the awakening day, determined to carve a legacy from the city's neon-lit chaos, one defiant moment at a time. The early morning light filtered through Vice City's misfiring neon as Migs Alvarez drove on, the city awakening in a haze of heat and shattered promises. The Impala hummed steadily along rain-worn back roads, its polished chrome catching the glints of a new day. Yet beneath the calm exterior, the pulse of Vice City thrummed with urgency, a dangerous mix of ambition and imminent retribution. Migs's mind was a whirlwind of strategies. Every stolen parcel of contraband, every leaked secret, and every bruise from this neon-soaked battlefield had led him here. Today, the game was about more than survival. It was about reshaping the underbelly of a city where the glitter of wealth masked a legacy of corruption. Pulling into a narrow alley behind a once grand hotel now scarred by time and neglect, Migs slid his car into a discreet parking spot. His crew had been summoned to an abandoned mezzanine overlooking Little Havana's reconstruction sites, an area where crumbling facades met the raw energy of street art and the collective dream of change. There, under the flickering glow of emergency lights, his trusted team assembled. Faces hardened by countless battles, accompanied by the soft murmurs of anticipation, reminded him that every scar was a badge of their shared defiance. In the low murmur of the confined space, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the bittersweet tang of espresso, plans were being redrawn like blueprints for a better future. Migs stepped forward, his voice low and resolute. "Listen up," he said, eyes scanning the expectant faces around him. "Tonight, we strike deeper into the enemy's heart. The last operation was just the signal, a prelude to the real disruption. Marta's plan to intercept that illicit arms shipment is a chance to shift the balance in our favor. We're not just taking back what's rightfully ours, we're sending a message. Vice City isn't a playground for traitors or pushovers." His words cut through the silence as he unrolled a faded map on a battered table. "We're moving through these corridors," he pointed sharply at winding, poorly lit back streets, "and hitting the supply line hard. Each route, each checkpoint has been charted. We have to be invisible in the day and ghosts in the night. One slip and the whole thing goes south." Between staccato clicks of a portable radio and the soft rustle of hurried preparations, his lieutenant, a wiry, quick-witted tech specialist with eyes that never missed a detail, confirmed the status of the digital trail. "The cameras on the depot have been looped, boss. Our signal's clean for at least another hour." The assurance was brief relief, a fleeting moment in a tense war of attrition. Another crew member, equally battle-worn, loaded his sidearm with deliberate precision as he interjected, "We got a small window. Once we're in, we disable their comms, secure the shipment, and exfiltrate through the eastern corridor." Migs nodded, absorbing every detail. The plan was delicate, a tightrope walk between ruthless efficiency and the chaotic volatility of Vice City's criminal undercurrent. With the sun beginning to cast long, distorted shadows over the pulsing streets, Migs led his team out of the hideout. The humid air was thick with potential and dread. They moved silently through a maze of narrow alleyways and deserted storefronts, each step measured against the watchful eyes of rats and rival factions. At every corner, the city revealed layers of its dual nature, a booming masquerade of wealth and decadence interlaced with the raw grit of back-alley dealings. Every reverberating beat of distant synth and every echoing footstep reminded them that they were not alone in this urban battlefield. Vice City was alive, and its heart was as unpredictable as the flickering neon signs overhead. In a moment of stillness between rapid maneuvers and covert exchanges, Migs allowed himself a brief pause. He slipped beneath the shadow of a crumbling mural that depicted a long-forgotten icon of the city's rebellious past. In that quiet, near-sacred instant, he pondered the price of every risk. They were fighting not just for contraband and cash, but for the soul of a metropolis built on both glitter and grime. His mind replayed Marta Caldera's sultry directive, layered with promises of power and threats of ruin. Every fiber of his being had been honed for this moment, a collision of blood, grit, and the relentless desire to reclaim a future from the jaws of decay. Revving the engine one last time to signal the final push, Migs and his team surged forward. The night promised further turbulence, a cascade of split-second decisions and imminent confrontations. Yet beneath it all, there burned a guiding conviction. No matter how deep the shadows in Vice City, they would ignite a spark of change that could never be extinguished. As the urban labyrinth swallowed them whole and the city's heartbeat merged with their own, Migs Alvarez accelerated into the infinite uncertain horizon, each mile a defiant testament to the revolution that was only just beginning. The oppressive heat of early morning had not yet lifted when Migs Alvarez and his crew slipped silently into the industrial maze on the outskirts of Vice City. The once familiar hum of neon had dwindled into a tense, anticipatory whisper as they approached the darkened warehouse district, the nerve center of the armed shipment they were about to intercept. Every step forward was calculated, every heartbeat a reminder that the city's ruthless pulse never forgave a misstep. Ducking into an alley between rusted shipping containers, Migs exchanged curt nods with his lieutenant and the tech specialist, whose fingers danced over a battered tablet. The digital feed had confirmed it. The depot's security cameras were looping old footage, a fragile shield against eyes that might otherwise expose their moves. Yet beneath the veneer of controlled chaos, tension coiled like a live wire. Migs's gaze, dark behind reflective lenses, swept over the graffiti-scarred walls, reading the silent warnings etched there by those who had once fought and lost in these very corridors. The plan was simple yet fraught with peril. Infiltrate the warehouse, disable the cartel's comms, and secure the illicit shipment before it left the docks. With a final whispered instruction, Migs signaled his crew to spread out. The muffled clatter of boots on cracked concrete merged with distant synth beats that dripped from a nearby rundown club. A reminder that even in these abandoned corners, Vice City never truly slept. As he led the charge through a yawning side door half obscured by shadows and peeling posters, his heart thundered in time with the distant rumble of an approaching storm. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil and rust, a fitting stage for a confrontation as inevitable as betrayal in this treacherous underworld. Hidden behind stacks of overstuffed crates, Migs paused, peering through a gap in the corrugated metal. There, in the eerie half-light, figures moved with an ominous urgency. The cartel's enforcers were already assembling in a perimeter formation, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of intrusion. A split second later, a suppressed shot cracked the silence. A warning, a provocation, or perhaps an unfortunate mistake by one of the enemy ranks. The shot's echo set off a cascade of controlled chaos. Migs's instincts kicked in. He dove behind a heavy crate, his fingers finding the comforting grip of his MAC-10. The ensuing minutes blurred into a symphony of staccato gunfire and desperate shouts, punctuated by the steady clatter of boots on concrete and the hiss of silenced weapons slicing through the smoky air. From his vantage point, Migs watched as his crew executed their tasks with fierce precision. The enforcer cleared a narrow corridor with a flurry of lethal blows, while the tech specialist scrambled to intercept any sudden shifts in the digital network that could alert the enemy to their position. Every movement was a desperate dance between life and death, a testament to the steely resolve of those who had chosen to fight for a better future amidst Vice City's cruel glitz. In the thick of the firefight, Migs caught sight of a familiar silhouette retreating too quickly, a figure whose hesitation might well betray a hidden enemy. With relentless focus, he moved to intercept the traitor. His voice, rough and uncompromising, cut through the chaos. "Don't even think about double-crossing this crew." A flash of panic in the traitor's eyes told Migs all he needed to know. With a precise, controlled burst from his MAC-10, he silenced the next threat before retreat could turn into absolute betrayal. The firefight gradually subsided into a chaotic lull, a momentary pause in which the cacophony of battle was reduced to the ragged breaths of men and the drip of condensation on cold metal. Amid this tense quiet, Migs gathered his thoughts and assessed the scene. The shipment was theirs to secure, the enemy scattered enough to allow his crew to round up the contraband with surgical precision. But deep down, he knew that tonight's skirmish was merely a prelude. The hostile forces, the corrupt cops and rival factions, would not let this incident go unanswered. Rising amidst the debris, Migs's eyes burned with defiance as he radioed his team. "Clear out the area. We secure the package and vanish before reinforcements show. This shipment changes everything." His words, both command and promise, reverberated in the echoing emptiness of the warehouse. The stolen stash, the illicit cache of arms that glittered ominously under harsh fluorescent lights, became the symbol of their crusade. It wasn't just about profit. It was about toppling the established order in Vice City, reclaiming control from the brutal overlords who had long ruled with iron fists and neon lies. Outside, the first weak rays of dawn began to dissipate the lingering shadows, as if the city itself were caught between the relics of past sins and the uncertain promise of a new day. Migs Alvarez, soaked in sweat and steeled by conflict, stared out over the awakening horizon. Every scar, every bullet shell littering the floor, was carved into the city's legacy, a reminder that change was achieved not by gentle persuasion, but by those unafraid to challenge the ruthless heartbeat of Vice City head-on. In that charged moment, as his crew began the painstaking process of transporting the arms to their next secure location, Migs's thoughts turned inward to the greater mission ahead. The betrayal, the firefight, every calculated risk. They were all pieces on a vast, dangerous chessboard where the stakes were nothing less than total control of a city built on dreams and despair. And as the neon buzz gave way to the sober light of dawn, Migs Alvarez resolved that no matter how deep the corruption, no matter how many enemies engaged in this relentless dance of backstabbing ambition, he and his crew would continue to fight. Every bullet, every whispered command, every defiant act of rebellion had forged a new identity for those lost souls of Vice City, a promise that amidst the glitter and grime, their revolution would rise unyielding, one pulse at a time. The oppressive heat of early morning had not yet lifted when Migs Alvarez and his crew slipped silently into the industrial maze on the outskirts of Vice City. The once familiar hum of neon had dwindled into a tense, anticipatory whisper as they approached the darkened warehouse district, the nerve center of the arms shipment they were about to intercept. Every step forward was calculated, every heartbeat a reminder that the city's ruthless pulse never forgave a misstep. Ducking into an alley between rusted shipping containers, Migs exchanged curt nods with his lieutenant and the tech specialist, whose fingers danced over a battered tablet. The digital feed had confirmed it. The depot's security cameras were looping old footage, a fragile shield against eyes that might otherwise expose their moves. Yet beneath the veneer of controlled chaos, tension coiled like a live wire. Migs's gaze, dark behind reflective lenses, swept over the graffiti-scarred walls, reading the silent warnings etched there by those who had once fought and lost in these very corridors. The plan was simple, yet fraught with peril. Infiltrate the warehouse, disable the cartel's comms, and secure the illicit shipment before it left the docks. With a final whispered instruction, Migs signaled his crew to spread out. The muffled clatter of boots on cracked concrete merged with distant synth beats that dripped from a nearby rundown club, a reminder that even in these abandoned corners, Vice City never truly slept. As he led the charge through a yawning side door half obscured by shadows and peeling posters, his heart thundered in time with the distant rumble of an approaching storm. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil and rust, a fitting stage for a confrontation as inevitable as betrayal in this treacherous underworld. Hidden behind stacks of overstuffed crates, Migs paused, peering through a gap in the corrugated metal. There, in the eerie half-light, figures moved with an ominous urgency. The cartel's enforcers were already assembling in a perimeter formation, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of intrusion. A split second later, a suppressed shot cracked the silence, a warning, a provocation, or perhaps an unfortunate mistake by one of the enemy ranks. The shot's echo set off a cascade of controlled chaos. Migs's instincts kicked in. He dove behind a heavy crate, his fingers finding the comforting grip of his MAC-10. The ensuing minutes blurred into a symphony of staccato gunfire and desperate shouts, punctuated by the steady clatter of boots on concrete and the hiss of silenced weapons slicing through the smoky air. From his vantage point, Migs watched as his crew executed their tasks with fierce precision. The enforcer cleared a narrow corridor with a flurry of lethal blows, while the tech specialist scrambled to intercept any sudden shifts in the digital network that could alert the enemy to their position. Every movement was a desperate dance between life and death, a testament to the steely resolve of those who had chosen to fight for a better future amidst Vice City's cruel glitz. In the thick of the firefight, Migs caught sight of a familiar silhouette retreating too quickly, a figure whose hesitation might well betray a hidden enemy. With relentless focus, he moved to intercept the traitor. His voice, rough and uncompromising, cut through the chaos. "Don't even think about double-crossing this crew." A flash of panic in the traitor's eyes told Migs all he needed to know. With a precise, controlled burst from his MAC-10, he silenced the next threat before retreat could turn into absolute betrayal. The firefight gradually subsided into a chaotic lull, a momentary pause in which the cacophony of battle was reduced to the ragged breaths of men and the drip of condensation on cold metal. Amid this tense quiet, Migs gathered his thoughts and assessed the scene. The shipment was theirs to secure, the enemy scattered enough to allow his crew to round up the contraband with surgical precision. But deep down, he knew that tonight's skirmish was merely a prelude. The hostile forces, the corrupt cops and rival factions would not let this incident go unanswered. Rising amidst the debris, Migs's eyes burned with defiance as he radioed his team. "Clear out the area. We secure the package and vanish before reinforcements show. This shipment changes everything." His words, both command and promise, reverberated in the echoing emptiness of the warehouse. The stolen stash, the illicit cache of arms that glittered ominously under harsh fluorescent lights, became the symbol of their crusade. It wasn't just about profit. It was about toppling the established order in Vice City, reclaiming control from the brutal overlords who had long ruled with iron fists and neon lies. Outside, the first weak rays of dawn began to dissipate the lingering shadows, as if the city itself were caught between the relics of past sins and the uncertain promise of a new day. Migs Alvarez, soaked in sweat and steeled by conflict, stared out over the awakening horizon. Every scar, every bullet shell littering the floor, was carved into the city's legacy, a reminder that change was achieved not by gentle persuasion, but by those unafraid to challenge the ruthless heartbeat of Vice City head-on. In that charged moment, as his crew began the painstaking process of transporting the arms to their next secure location, Migs's thoughts turned inward to the greater mission ahead. The betrayal, the firefight, every calculated risk. They were all pieces on a vast, dangerous chessboard, where the stakes were nothing less than total control of a city built on dreams and despair. And as the neon buzz gave way to the sober light of dawn, Migs Alvarez resolved that no matter how deep the corruption, no matter how many enemies engaged in this relentless dance of backstabbing ambition, he and his crew would continue to fight. Every bullet, every whispered command, every defiant act of rebellion had forged a new identity for those lost souls of Vice City. A promise that amidst the glitter and grime, their revolution would rise unyielding, one pulse at a time. The aftermath of the firefight left Vice City bathed in a sullen, early morning gray light. The warehouse lay in shattered silence, bullet casings scattered like defeated hopes across grimy concrete, while the stolen arms, now meticulously secured in metal crates, produced a low, persistent hum of impending consequences. Migs Alvarez, his face set in grim determination, surveyed the scene from behind a half-collapsed doorway. The warehouse had become a crucible where betrayal and raw ambition had collided. Now, every dent in the corrugated metal and every smudge of oil was a reminder that the city's underbelly never forgives and never forgets. Without wasting a heartbeat, he gathered his crew. They moved with the practiced precision of a well-oiled machine, each man and woman aware that the slightest slip could expose them to a lethal retaliation. In the quiet moments that followed, as the first light of dawn crept timidly over Vice City's broken skyline, his tech specialist rechecked the digital trails, while the enforcer methodically inspected the crates one last time. A soft, steady buzz on Migs' burner confirmed encrypted messages from trusted contacts. The cartel was already stirring, their retaliation imminent. The crew's eyes exchanged glances thick with both resolve and foreboding. They were about to become the spark that would ignite a full-blown inferno in the neon-soaked streets. Loading the arms into a beat-up but reliable van, their extraction vehicle, Migs led his team through a labyrinth of deserted back roads. Every reflected glimmer of neon, every splash of rain on cracked asphalt, felt like a countdown to the next confrontation. Their escape wasn't just about bolting from the scene. It was about disappearing into the maze of Vice City, moving like ghosts through sunlit alleys and dim industrial quarters that concealed as much history as they did danger. As the van rolled away, its engine low and steady, Migs couldn't help but recall Marta Caldera's cool, commanding voice. The promise of power intertwined with the threat of ruin, and the warnings from Big Carlos about the unpredictable loyalties in this ruthless game. Once the cityscape merged into the less familiar outskirts, the van slowed to a stop at a nondescript safe house, tucked away behind a faded mural of palm trees and rebellion. Here, in an environment that reeked of worn leather and defiant graffiti, the crew huddled to catch their breath and strategize the next move. Over hushed conversations, punctuated by the crackle of a portable radio and the occasional distant wail of a siren, they assessed the price of tonight's victory. Every crate of stolen arms wasn't just a stockpile of illicit weaponry. It was a wager on control, a card to be played in the high-stakes game of power that dictated who ruled Vice City's underworld. Migs stepped outside for a moment, the humid air clinging to him as he stared at the awakening city. In that pause between the storm and the calm, he reflected on the raw cost of ambition. The betrayal he'd witnessed in that warehouse wasn't an isolated lapse. It was the language of Vice City, a language written in blood, neon, and shattered dreams. But with that realization came a steely promise. The city's pulse might be chaotic, but tonight, his crew had claimed a piece of its future. Every step they took from that battered safe house, every careful maneuver to transport their prize, was a step toward rewriting the rules. As the crew dispersed to their respective tasks, securing exits, erasing digital footprints, and preparing for the inevitable counterstrike, Migs stared down the horizon where the dull glow of dawn met the encroaching heat of the day. The tension in the air was palpable, charged with both the thrill of their daring and the weight of what they had dared to steal. In that charged silence, he vowed that the stolen arms wouldn't just be a trophy of defiance. They would become the building blocks of a revolution. Vice City, with all its deceptive glitz and unyielding cruelty, was about to be reminded of one undeniable truth. In a city of betrayal, only the bold wrote their own destiny. With resolute eyes and a mind, racing ahead to the next dangerous chapter, Migs slid back into the driver's seat of the van. The engine purred like a beast woken up for war, and as the van lurched forward into the sprawling urban labyrinth, he couldn't shake the feeling that every mile carried them further from what they'd known, and closer to the dawn of a new era deftly carved out of Vice City's neon and chaos. Migs gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white against the cracked leather. The engine's low growl mixed with the morning hum of Vice City, heat shimmering off rain-soaked pavement, the scent of damp concrete blending with gasoline and betrayal. He had stolen from the most dangerous cartel in the city, turned their shipment into his own leverage, and now every mile he drove carried the weight of consequences he could no longer avoid. The van's tires slid slightly as he turned onto a winding stretch of road leading away from the safe house. His crew was inside, securing the stolen arsenal, packing crates in silence because words wouldn't change the fact that they had just signed their own death warrants. No one in Vice took a hit like this without bleeding for it, and the cartel would be sharpening their knives. Marta Caldera's voice had been sharp over the burner hours earlier, urgency cutting through the static. This isn't just about the shipment anymore, Migs. The Mexicans are looking for blood. They want a statement. You need to be ahead of them before they decide the block is theirs. He had given her no promises, just silence, because he knew, better than to make promises in this city. He would handle it the way he always did, fast, without hesitation, and without emotion. But inside, He felt it gnawing at him, the weight of everything building like pressure in a chamber waiting to explode. Back at the safe house, the radio buzzed. Big Carlos's rough voice came through first. "Ballast are moving too. They got wind of what happened at the docks. They think it's a free-for-all now. If you don't handle this quick, Vice will see a war bigger than 81. Migs slammed the van door shut and lit a cigarette, the ember glowing in the dim light as he exhaled slowly. He had seen what turf wars did, how they tore through families, how entire neighborhoods were swallowed whole by reckless vendettas, and he knew that once the first body dropped, there would be no turning back. Inside the safe house, Dre paced, near the crates, his movements tight with tension. "We keep moving," he muttered, checking his ammo. "No waiting. We got targets on our backs, and Vice ain't got no mercy." Lil Maya, sitting cross-legged on a desk littered with burner phones and city maps, tapped a message into the darknet. Her earrings caught the dim light as she murmured, "We need to know their next move before they know ours. You got options, Migs. None of them good." That was the truth. He could make a play, sell the shipment to an interested buyer out of state, slip it into the hands of a militia up north and let them become someone else's problem. Or he could dig in, force the cartel's hand, make it clear that this city wasn't theirs to take. But the difference between a soldier and a king was who dictated the terms. And Migs wasn't looking to be anyone's soldier anymore. "We hold. Position," he finally said, flicking ash onto the cold concrete. "We move the shipment in sections, small drops, nothing traceable, and if they come looking, we let them know Vice ain't theirs to take." Spook grunted from the doorway, watching the street through half-closed blinds. "That means we gotta be ready, boss. Ain't nobody gonna let this slide." Outside, the city pulsed. Cars rolled slow through the humid morning. Pedestrians moved in lazy defiance of the heat. But underneath it all, Migs could feel the storm building. Vice City was watching, waiting. The cartel, the ballast, the cops, they were all waiting for the first mistake. Migs rolled his cigarette between his fingers, staring at the crates stacked against the wall. It had started with stolen guns, but now it was bigger than that. It was power, control, the right to decide who ruled the block. And if Vice wanted war, he'd give them one. But it would be on his terms. Migs stared out over Vice City's restless skyline, the neon flickering against the humid dawn like a living, breathing thing. The weight of the stolen shipment, the looming war with the cartel, and the ever-present danger of the ballast pressed against him like a vice. There was no turning back, only moving forward, faster, smarter, deadlier. The safe house had turned into a command center, buzzing with the low hum of strategizing voices. Lil Maya tapped away at her burner, tracking movements on the darknet. Dre reloaded, checked his clips, then reloaded again. Spook stood near the window, silent but watching, always watching. The crew was dialed in, ready. The city would soon know that Vice wasn't for sale. Migs pulled a crumpled cigarette from his pocket, lighting it with a flick of his Zippo. The scent of burning tobacco mixed with the gasoline fumes from the van parked outside. He inhaled deep, letting the smoke curl around his thoughts. The next move had to be perfect, one misstep, and the cartel would make sure no one ever spoke his name again. The shipment had to move. Slowly, methodically, undetected. Large-scale drops were suicide. Now, everything had to be spread thin, carved out piece by piece, distributed in a way that left no trail for the Mexicans or the crooked cops sniffing around for a payday. Every street contact was re-verified, every alley exit mapped. He didn't have the luxury of mistakes. Big Carlos called in just after sunrise. "Ballast making noise, Chico. They think you weak. Say the Mexicans gon' roll through and take what's left." Migs exhaled smoke, eyes narrowing. "They think wrong." Carlos chuckled through the static. "That's why I like you, Alvarez. You don't blink. But don't be stupid. You make this play, it's all or nothing." Migs killed the call without another word. He didn't need a reminder. He'd been living on the edge for too long now to need advice. He turned back to the room where his crew had settled into their roles. Maya checking digital trails, Dre cleaning the barrels on a shotgun, Spook quietly marking getaway routes on an old map. "We move tonight," he said finally. "Divide the stash. Small runs, low profile. Nobody rolls heavy. If the ballas push, we push harder. If the cartel comes, we make sure they regret it." Dre nodded, the gleam in his eye one of anticipation rather than fear. Maya barely looked up, still locked into her surveillance. Spook muttered under his breath, something between a prayer and a promise. And Migs? He stared at the city. His city. One last time before stubbing out his cigarette. Vice City was about to see a storm, and when the dust settled, only the strong would be left standing. Migs Alvarez pulled the hood of his jacket tighter against the humid night as he merged into a labyrinth of Vice City's back alleys. The stolen package securely in his possession wasn't just a load of contraband. It was the spark to destabilize the cartel's chokehold on the city's underbelly. The tension in the air was thick with promise and peril as he weaved through. Neon-lit streets splattered with the remnants of past betrayals and whispered legends of lost glory. Every road he took was a calculated risk, every flickering neon sign a reminder of what was at stake. Somewhere in the shadows, enemy eyes tracked his movements. Ballas and renegade cartel enforcers both itching for a chance to claim him, to turn his defiance against the very city that had molded him. But tonight, Migs wasn't just running. He was setting the stage for an all-out confrontation that would tip the power balance once and for all. At a remote intersection near a dilapidated service station, he slowed down, scanning the perimeter with hawk-like precision. His burner buzzed again, a coded signal from Maya confirming that her feed showed enemy convoys gathering near the warehouse district. The message was simple and chilling. "They're moving in. Expect them any minute." Without missing a beat, Miggs's grip on the handlebars tightened as he pulled into a narrower lane, the weight of his choices pressing down like the humid night itself. In the safe house just hours before, his crew had sprung into meticulously organized chaos. Dre and Spook had scouted multiple exit routes, mapping every crumbling brick and shadowed doorway, while Maya's fingers danced over encrypted feeds to keep the enemy off balance. Every plan, every contingency, had been laid down with the same cold calculation that had seen Migs rise from Vice City's murky depths. Now that all the pieces were in motion, there was no turning back, only forward into the jaws of the coming storm. Leaving the relative anonymity of the van, Migs hopped onto a waiting motorcycle, its engine purring low and steady like a beast primed for the hunt. He rode out into the night, his eyes fixed on the distant glow of the warehouse district where a critical drop was scheduled. Every second refreshed memories of past betrayals, friends lost, alliances shattered, and the constant reminder that, in the streets of Vice City, loyalty was as fleeting as a neon reflection on rain-soaked asphalt. As he advanced, the city's pulse grew louder, a mixture of pounding synth bass from a nearby club, the rumble of engines, and the murmurs of restless souls whose hopes had been traded for survival. The dark windows of rundown buildings offered fleeting glimpses of armed figures and cautious eyes, each one a silent participant in the dangerous game of power and retribution. Miggs's mind raced with the intricate web of alliances and enmities that defined his world. He recalled Marta Caldera's razor-edged directive, laced with equal parts promise and threat, a reminder that the very fabric of Vice City was as volatile as the heat that shimmered over its streets. The stolen package was more than a bargaining chip. It was the key to igniting a revolution, a future where every block could be carved out from the corruption that had ruled for too long. Nearing the designated drop point, a forgotten warehouse, with its facade half consumed by layers of graffiti and time, Miggs slowed his motorcycle. Under a sputtering street lamp, he saw the silhouette of his contact, a jittery young man whose wary eyes betrayed the constant pressure of living on the edge. In a brief, hushed exchange, the young man pressed into Miggs's hand a small, unassuming container. Within it lay not only illicit arms but encrypted data, a veritable arsenal of secrets that could dismantle the cartel's operations piece by piece. No sooner had the exchange concluded than the night erupted into calculated chaos. The distant hum of approaching vehicles signaled that the enemy wasn't far behind. Ballas and cartel enforcers converging with the silent precision of predators. Migs melted into the shadows, the sound of his motorcycle's engine a mere whisper against the urban roar. Every muscle was tuned to the threat, every sense sharpened by the anticipation of imminent conflict. He darted across rain-slicked streets and crumbling side alleys, the stolen container clutched close like a lifeline. Behind him, stray flashes of headlights and the echo of rapid footsteps promised that the storm was just beginning. The stolen package wasn't safe yet. It was the beacon that would draw the enemy out into the open, and he intended to use that to his advantage. Quiet commands cracked over his burner sounded like both plan and provocation. Hold position, ready to engage on my mark. In the midst of the city's restless sleep, Vice City spun into a dangerous dirge of adrenaline and defiance. Migs Alvarez, a lone figure riding against the tide, couldn't help but feel the raw power of the moment. Every drop of rain on his weathered leather, every headlight zigzagging through the dark, each element was a note in the symphony of war that he was about to conduct. Oppression, betrayal, and fleeting hope collided in his mind as he accelerated deeper into the labyrinth, determined to turn the tide. With the stolen secrets secured and the sound of enemy convoys growing ever nearer, Migs knew that every choice he made in the next few minutes would rewrite his destiny. The hostile forces gathering in the distance might think they had the upper hand, but history in Vice City was written by those who dared to disrupt the status quo. And tonight, as the neon chaos and relentless adrenaline churned all around him, Migs Alvarez was prepared to ignite the revolution his city desperately needed. In the echoing darkness, where every shadow whispered rebellion and every turn could be a trap, he pressed on, an unyielding force riding into the storm, ready to carve out a future where the underdogs wrote the rules and the streets of Vice City finally belonged to those brave enough to seize them. Migs Alvarez pushed on, the roar of his motorcycle a constant companion as he navigated the labyrinthine back streets of Vice City. With the broken neon of dawn still smeared across the horizon, every mile he covered felt like a step deeper into a reckoning he'd been building for years. The battered expressway, slick with residual rain and urban grit, reflected the fractured light of a city caught between decay and defiant rebirth. In his mind, memories of last night's firefight danced with the promise of imminent retribution. Every flash of light and every echo of distant sirens served as a reminder that the stolen arsenal now in his possession was a beacon not only of power, but also of peril. As he accelerated toward the rendezvous point, a long-forgotten industrial dock rumored to be a nexus for underground deals, Migs replayed the terse communications from his crew. Maya's encrypted updates had confirmed that enemy convoys were shifting, their heavy vehicles gliding through side streets in calculated pursuit. Dre's measured voice over the comm reminded him of the split-second decisions they'd made, dispersing the shipment into smaller, untraceable drops and mapping escape routes that twisted through Vice City's decaying alleys. Each order and every whispered code was a stitch in the fabric of a revolution that had slowly taken shape under the relentless weight of the city's corruption. Arriving at the desolate dock, Migs slowed his bike under the ghostly watch of looming warehouses and damaged shipping containers, their hulking silhouettes etched against a bruise-colored sky. Here, the concrete and rust had become a canvas for rebellion, a place where the echoes of past betrayals mingled with the raw promise of change. He dismounted with quiet determination, shoulders set as he surveyed the scene. A battered, graffiti-covered loading platform stretched out before him, an ominous stage waiting for the next act in this dangerous play. His contact, a wiry smuggler, known only as Rocco, emerged from the shadows, eyes alight with the familiar spark of questionable loyalty. In a brief, covert exchange under the sputtering glow of a single swinging lamp, Rocco pressed a small duffel bag into Migs's hand. Inside lay not only extra arms and sensitive data, but also the keys to dismantling the cartel's chokehold on the streets. Even as Migs secured the bag, the sound of approaching engines, rumbling like an angry beast, shattered the fragile stillness. The enemy was closing in, their headlights slashing through the murk of early morning with predatory precision. Quickly, he activated his burner, issuing crisp commands to his dispersed crew. "Hold positions, initiate diversion." His voice, a razor edge in the low hum of tension, was met by the rapid clatter of prepared devices, remote detonators, flashing decoys, and the chaotic symphony of countermeasures designed to scatter pursuing forces into disarray. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to slow as Migs fixed his gaze on the neon horizon. Every scar on the pavement, every crumbling wall, reminded him that Vice City was a living archive of betrayal and resilience. In that breathless pause, he recalled the faces of those who had fought and fallen, the people who had dared to dream amid the filth and the fury of this urban jungle. It was for them, for the promise of a new order, where the oppressed would no longer bow to the tyrants of greed, that he had risked everything. Then, with a silent exhale, the world flared back into motion. The enemy's convoy, momentarily thrown into chaos by the orchestrated diversions, hesitated in its formation. Seizing the opportunity, Migs swung his motorcycle into a narrow side street, the engine's roar merging with the distant echo of explosions and shouts from his team. Every turn and every acceleration was a calculated defiance, a declaration that while Vice City might be drenched in neon and betrayal, it would forever be ruled by those bold enough to reclaim its soul. Riding hard through the rain-misted streets, with the stolen secrets secure and the storm of retribution intensifying behind him, Migs Alvarez steered deeper into the unfolding revolution. In this city of fractured dreams and gleaming decay, every pulse of his engine, every determined twist of the throttle was a battle cry for the underdogs who refused to slip into oblivion. The night was far from over, and with each defiant mile, Migs was scripting the next chapter in a saga where chaos met courage, and where destiny was forged in the blazing heat of Vice City's relentless neon dawn. Migs Alvarez stood on the cracked concrete of an abandoned overpass, the neon glow of Vice City bleeding like shattered dreams into the early hours. This was it, the penultimate hour before the final storm. Every darkened alleyway and flickering billboard, every distant siren and unsettled murmur of the city, spoke of an impending reckoning. In the charged silence between chaos and calm, Migs felt the weight of years of betrayal, loss, and hard-won. Survival settled over him like an old scar. His crew had converged at a forgotten rooftop, their faces illuminated by makeshift lights and the shifting hues of the awakening city. Maya's fingers danced over a patched-together tablet, confirming that enemy forces were gathering at critical choke points along the docks and in the heart of downtown. Dre and Spook, ever vigilant, exchanged grim looks as they adjusted their gear, knowing that every second counted now. The plan, honed through countless close calls, was now at its most critical juncture. To disrupt the cartel's impending counterstrike and secure the fragments of power they'd risked so much to claim. As gray light began to push back the remnants of night, Migs recalled the long, brutal road that had led him here. The firefights in dilapidated warehouses, the cold betrayal of allies who turned on each other for a scrap of glory, and the whispered promises of change that had driven him to stake his claim in this unforgiving city. Every beat of his heart pounded like a tribal drum, echoing the determination of a man who had borne the scars of Vice City's ruthless streets and refused to be broken. The air was thick with tension as he issued final orders over the burner, his voice low and resolute. "This is our penultimate move. Keep your eyes sharp, your triggers ready. When they come, we hit hard, hit fast, and we don't give them a second chance." His words rippled through his crew like a battle cry, a promise that their struggle was not yet over, that they had one last chance to rewrite the rules of the game. Outside, the city stirred into reluctant motion. Distant convoys rumbled through rain-soaked streets, their headlights slicing through the fog like predatory eyes. The cartel's enforcers and the Ballas's hired muscle were mobilizing, drawn by the scent of rebellion and the lure of power. Vice City itself seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that the penultimate act of this high-stakes drama was nearing its climax, a moment when the fate of every soul in its neon-lit labyrinth would be decided by the relentless will of those brave enough to stand against corruption. Migs took one last look at the faces around him, each one a mirror of his own hardened resolve, and let a quiet promise form in his chest. This was not the end, but the final build-up to a reckoning that, would shake the foundations of their world. In the charged expectancy of that tenuous moment, amid the clamor of a city on the brink, he revved his engine and led his crew into the night. They surged forward as one, a force poised to clash with tyranny and carve out a future from the restless heart of Vice City. Every mile they traveled, every shadow they passed, was a step toward the final confrontation, a prelude to the dawn where the old order would crumble under the weight of their unyielding defiance. The penultimate hour had arrived, and with it, the hope that even in the depths of betrayal and chaos, change was possible. Migs Alvarez and his crew fused with the pulse of the city, ready to deliver a final blow that would echo through every rain-slicked street and every scarred corner of Vice City. Under a blood-orange sunrise, Vice City began to awaken from the chaos of a long, brutal night. Amid the smoldering ruins of abandoned warehouses and shattered neon dreams, Migs Alvarez stood at the edge of a battered dock, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the restless ocean met a city in transformation. The violence of the previous hours, the deafening roar of gunfire, the flash of headlights in frenzied pursuit, and the synchronized chaos of a well-orchestrated rebellion had finally ebbed. Now, in the delicate stillness of early morning, every echo of shattered glass and spent shell whispered of an irrevocable change. Migs's crew had gathered in the fading shadow of crumbling containers, their faces awash with both relief and the haunted remembrance of loss. Maya sat hunched over a hacked terminal, her nimble fingers still tracing lines of encrypted data that chronicled their daring victory. Dre leaned against a rusted support beam, the weight of his weapon momentarily forgotten as his eyes surveyed the remnants of conflict. And Spook, silent and ever watchful, maintained his vigil from his usual perch, ensuring no stray enemy remained to challenge their hard-won moment of triumph. For Migs Alvarez, this final confrontation had been the culmination of years spent navigating the treacherous alleys of Vice City, a place where loyalty had often been as fleeting as the glint of a neon sign. Every bullet fired, every drop of sweat shed in the grim underground battles had led to this singular moment, a chance to topple the old, corrupt regime and to chart a new course for the oppressed. The stolen cache of weapons, once a symbol of reckless ambition, had now transformed into the building blocks of a nascent revolution. They would be repurposed, not to fuel further bloodshed, but to empower a community that had long suffered under merciless tyranny. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Migs stepped forward and looked over the cityscape, the labyrinth of decaying high-rises, the shimmering reflections on rain-dappled streets, and the scattered remnants of a once-feared empire. In that silent, reflective moment, he recalled every sacrifice made along the way. Friends lost in the crossfire, betrayals etched deep like scars on his soul, and the countless nights spent in the cold embrace of despair before igniting a spark of defiance. This was the price of change, and Vice City was paying it in full. The reverberations of their defiance soon shivered through every corner of the urban sprawl. In distant neighborhoods, whispers began to ripple like an electric current. They fought for us. They broke the chains. On street corners and in cramped back rooms, people stirred at the news, a collective heartbeat rising in defiance of a dark past. The enemy's retaliatory forces, having fallen into disarray amid the well-planned diversions, now retreated into the labyrinth of their own failures, leaving behind a city battered by conflict, yet alight with a newfound hope. Migs knelt for a moment beside a splintered wall adorned with faded graffiti, a mosaic of protest and memory left by those who had fought before him. His hand ran over the rough texture of the wall as he whispered, "This is for everyone who believed we could reclaim our home." His words, half a prayer and half a promise, were carried away by the gentle caress of the morning breeze. Each exhalation was a vow to transform Vice City from a playground of greed and corruption into a sanctuary of resilience, a place where every soul had the right to dream. In the hours that followed, as the city began its slow, uncertain return to life, Migs and his crew set about the arduous tasks of securing their gains. They reassembled the stolen arms into safe caches, not for further strife, but as a foundation to safeguard their community's future. Plans were redrawn with painstaking care, Routes for delivery, strategies for protection, and blueprints for rebuilding were spread out on battered tables, illuminated by the soft glow of salvaged monitors. Even as sirens in the distance marked the last vestiges of enemy regrouping, the team worked methodically, driven by a shared belief that the ultimate battle was not just for territory, but for the very soul of their city. The tangible effects of the night's ordeal began to crystallize as Vice City woke fully. Shopkeepers cautiously unlatched their doors, street vendors resumed their calls, and even the flickering neon signs seemed to pulse with a renewed sense of purpose. The oppressive grip of the old regime, forged from the iron fist of unyielding corruption, was slowly loosening, its echoes fading into the collective memory of streets that refused to be silenced. Migs Alvarez, now standing atop a quiet overpass that overlooked the sprawling cityscape, watched as the urban giants glimmered with the gentle hues of dawn. In that solemn, reflective instant, he knew that the day would bring challenges yet unforeseen, that the revolution he had ignited would face hurdles born from the bitterness of the past and the turbulence of change. Still, the path ahead was clear, a path paved by the sacrifices of the many, each one a stepping stone toward a future defined not by exploitation, but by unity and resolve. With a final glance at the embers of the night, the shattered crates, the faded marks of violence, and the lingering vibrations of heroic defiance, Migs whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." His voice, soft yet unwavering, carried the weight of an entire city's aspirations. The legacy of tonight's battle would be remembered not as a moment of ruthless conflict, but as the turning point where the underdog seized destiny from the hands of tyrants. And so, as Vice City bathed in the hopeful glow of a new day, the story of Migs Alvarez and his crew closed its final chapter on one book. The final act of a saga, written in valor, sacrifice, and unyielding determination. The revolution they had sparked would live on in every street, every whispered promise of change, and every heart brave enough to defy an oppressive past. In the mosaic of broken dreams and forged futures, their legacy was cast in indelible ink, a beacon of hope for every lost soul in the neon labyrinth of Vice City. Hope you enjoyed, my friend. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. See you around.